Anyway.
Okay, we bring this meeting of the Jefferson Madison Regional Library Policy Committee to order. And first on our agenda is an update on Safe Child, which we had finalized and presented to the board for their review. And there was some kind of discussion during that full board meeting, in which generated a little bit of research or advice from David. And David's going to kind of let us know what he found, and then we'll kind of decide what to do about it in terms of this committee.
Yeah, and I think basically this is in the full board's hands now,
Yeah.
so if we wanted to talk about it more, we could, but it's, we've handed it over to them at this point. That last month, the library board talked about a discussion from library staff about what age this means, where if a child is not picked up at the end of the day at the library, how late, we're asking staff to stay late with them, and what does a child mean? And basically the information that I got from our legal counsel is to handle this procedurally. If you're going to require this here, then it should be under 18. The board's going to hash this out, I think, this afternoon. So we can discuss if you'd like to add anything, but basically it would be, Camille, would you like to add anything? Or Krista, would you like to add anything? Because the full board's going to do this again in an hour and a half. The big thing is in Louisa, where they've got the schools letting high school kids out, and do they need to every Friday ask staff to stay? So we'll have to talk about that.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that update. And it sounds like we're happy to let the full board kind of continue with anything that needs to. It sounds like the recommendation is going to be leave it this text as is.
Or remove that wording. The current policy says library staff are not responsible for children left after hours. So this is a change.
I see. Okay, great. All right, so then we can move to policy 4.53, library and community partnerships. So we made a good start on this in previous meetings, where we got to kind of a bullet point summary of things we wanted to make sure that we covered. And we do have, with the help of an intrepid volunteer, we have a good, some drafts to look at. So Anne got us started with kind of some an intro version, and then David and I also fleshed that out a little bit to cover a couple more of the bullet points. I will say, I think maybe the first question is, do we use the word partner or not? I know, Anne, you had mentioned to you it carries a legal context that you're maybe not, that might be better to stay away from. One thing David and I talked about it just in terms of just common usage. It's commonly used by staff. It's just sort of it feels like a natural tendency to use that word, not only at our library, but also other libraries that David looked at. So if we kept the word, the thought would be keep the word, but then have a clear disclaimer in the policy. Hey, when we use this word partner, we're not talking about a legal partnership. We're just talking more colloquially. Or we could try and rewrite the whole thing to avoid. So with that intro, I guess I'll open the floor to read portions of this or for discussion or comments.
Can I throw one other thing out there?
Yeah.
I did look back at the staff procedure associated with this policy. So one thing I always ask is, well, why do we have this policy? What usually was something happened that led to the library board at the time making a policy. And the procedure is mostly about staff soliciting donations for things. Like going to Ben and Jerry's and asking them for ice cream for the ice cream social. So just it helped give me some context, or why originally did this policy happen. And I don't think we necessarily need that addressed here. Like it is okay for library staff to ask people to donate things in support of what.
That doesn't,
not a partnership.
no,
Definitely not a two-way
No.
street. It's
It's not a
not a partnership at all. They're giving something and not getting it.
yeah, Heather's had a lot of success with getting Wegmans, for instance, for things. It isn't a partnership, it's just that they
Right.
contribute for the How To
If you
Festival.
look back at that procedure, that's what it's all talking about.
And then that really raises the question of why we have this at all. Because I think I think we're confusing, it's getting confusing.
So-
I have similar questions.
So in my mind, if we go to the red bullet points, it's precisely because the library habitually uses the word partnership. We're partnering with this organization. We've partnered with them. These guys are our partner. And if I'm a member of the public, I want to know what does that mean? Is the library endorsing this organization? Why has the library chosen to partner with this organization and possibly implicitly endorse it and not others? Why hasn't my organization been approached by the library? Why am I not, do you have this kind of status of partner? Because we use it, I think those are perceptual questions that need to be kind of covered, for the broader community to understand what's going on when they see this partner happening all the time. So the goal here would just be to put a little bit of context around those, questions that are just otherwise completely undefined.
So I think this version 3, as I read it, that Mike and I looked at, is mostly addressed to members of the public that have those particular questions. It's not something necessarily from the library board giving guidance to staff on how to partner per se. It's mostly just setting some guidelines for, what that means and how you would engage. And it ended up becoming a bit of a laundry list of other things that are covered in other places, like program partnership is covered in the program policy. Displays and bulletin board materials is covered in the displays and handouts policy. So it became more of a, okay, if you were searching our site for partner and this popped up, it would help you find where to go.
The only thing that really bothers me about version 3, that I would not identify these specific groups that, we are involved with. I just don't think that's helpful. But then people compare, I don't think you need that second paragraph.
Well, if you left out, they put my name, but they didn't put your name.
And that's a concern.
People are very sensitive about being omitted.
Right.
I think maybe this was an attempt in some ways to get back to one of your core points, Anne, which was that the only true partners in this, like in the legal sense, are the 5 jurisdictions there. But then I can see I see your point, basically, that doesn't address that actually, because it also includes the Festival of the Book, which is not paying any money to make the library happen.
Yeah, that's why I would take it out. There's no reason to have it.
I'm fine with that.
So then you have all these other, collaborations that are already dealt with. So then that just leaves you with the possibility there might be another reason to collaborate.
So that would be striking this. Any other thoughts? Probably this wouldn't be other, it would just become established ways.
My only thought would be you could potentially roll some of the second paragraph into the disclaimer, which is we could say, scroll down there when you get a chance. Our legal partners are the jurisdictions, but for purposes of other collaborations, these partners are limited in scope.
But even the disclaimer is confusing because you're saying, first of all, there's just too much about partnerships here, but you're saying that the partnerships are limited in scope, but they're not limited in scope, because especially if because our big partner is the jurisdictions, and that's not limited at all. So I just don't, I think if you, that disclaimer might cause more problems than it resolves.
Well, let me mention intent of that first little clause and see if we can get some better wording. I think the goal was, okay, we're advertising that because through a program partnership, somebody partnered with us on a health PSA or a health blood pressure.
We had the blood pressure.
And we said that who would be the partner in this case? The Red Cross is our partner for this. The intent here is to just show, because we're partnering on a Health Kit Partner Day, doesn't mean that that was for a specific purpose, and we're just trying to.
Partners for everything.
We're just trying to describe that this thing, when we use the word partner, it was just for that event on that day and not a broad
Yeah.
partnership and, in alignment with every aspect of everything that the Red Cross ever does. So if we can, I do think that's important if we're gonna use this word, to kind of say, well, we're just, it's a,
But see, the paragraph above just uses the word collaborate, and then you get then you don't have to worry about it. Organizations interested in collaborating should contact the library director, and the library director will make the decision because based on these criteria.
So don't call it a partnership, call it a collaboration?
Yeah.
From the beginning?
Well, my question is, do you mean in the context of this policy or just anywhere?
In the context of this policy.
how about even, but I don't want to just eliminate the word because we use it, and that's the point.
Staff uses it all,
Describe what we mean when we use it.
right? Like, how many partnerships does Glennis have, right? The Fralin,
Botanical
the
garden.
Botanical garden.
So what if we said a library collaboration, even when described as a partnership, is generally.
I guess to back up 1 second, I'm not that concerned, Ann, about muddying the waters with our jurisdictions with this policy. I don't think about this policy as being about our jurisdictions at all. We have a regional agreement, that we have.
Yeah, I get that. I'm just, I don't know. It's just, I think it's inconsistent. Then the second to last paragraph and the last paragraph should be consistent. And one's talking about collaborating and one's talking about partnerships, so it should be one or the other.
You say collaboration or partnership. I agree, Ann, that the word collaboration should.
A collaborative
bridge.
library partnership.
Yeah. I agree that that to use the same words.
Take out collaboration.
And make that partner and that.
Just,
With the
if you really want to say partner, then say partner. And partnering. Decision to partner.
Because this last sentence already uses it.
Yeah.
And then you have it up there under established ways to.
I kind of like being able to use them both because you're describing a you're just saying a partnership is a way
We
of
said
collaborating.
that
Yeah,
in the
Yeah.
top, JMRL collaborates with.
okay, sure.
Were there other thoughts about? I think maybe the goal here was just to show people like, oh, here are the types of collaborations that we have, but I take your point. I think I would lean towards cutting that paragraph. Thoughts?
I'm okay with cutting that paragraph. Like you said, it's covered in the regional agreement, and the book festival is covered in our meeting room, like special exception.
And we did decide to cut the list out, right?
I think that's what we're talking about, yeah.
And the reason for it is if you look at the list and then what you brought up, that isn't on there, the
Yeah.
blood pressure stuff.
Going once.
We don't want to leave anybody out.
How about the bullet points? So these are basically, I think, intended for the audience here is mostly the public or organizations that want to partner, and here's describing like, oh, if you want to do a program, do this. If you want to do a display, do that. You want to volunteer, do this.
And I think that's helpful for people. They can go directly to that.
Yeah. And then basically it's email and ask. similar to conversation that the board had when we were talking about kits, adding those kits to the library's collection, you know. It's that we initially were, yeah, this sounds good, that sounds good, and then we finally had to kind of focus that a little bit to say, well, they have to be part of our mission and values, and we're talking about things that align with those, so. Same here, is that broad enough? Is it too broad to say, you know, a decision to partner will be guided by the library's mission and values? I think the goal is to say that, you know, we can say no to some things because they're outside the scope of what the library is doing in the community.
Seems like I'm pretty happy so far. Sounds like people are comfortable. David, I want to pop into one. We're way ahead of schedule, which is great. If you look at the last bullet here, we noticed that the last red bullet. There's a schools policy. And this is it.
Robust.
Yeah, exactly. So can we somehow encompass what's on your screen now in the partnership policy and get rid of this one?
Yeah, this addresses where we took out that section about the different jurisdictions. I mean, we're talking about the schools in those jurisdictions.
Correct.
So just put that, include that and get rid of this.
I mean, I tend to think of them as different entities in each jurisdiction. There's the county government, and then there's the schools.
There's also private schools.
Yeah,
And there are other schools that are not, you know, not government
They're
owned,
homeschooled.
homeschooled. This is another one where I would love to know why at some point the
That's not really
library board was.
policy. It is, but it's,
That's a.
it's a statement.
It is a thing in public libraries, or it used to be more of a thing where it's like, oh, well, we don't want to undermine school libraries. We don't want our public school systems to say, oh, we don't need to put money towards school libraries because we have this public library that's providing these services. So that was my first thought. Maybe this is meant to address that in some way or another, but it's not. It's one of the reasons that I think the bookmobile policy that we're going to look at later this year specifically says bookmobile it won't go to a school as like, here's your library. You should, instead it would be, you need to have your own library. So, but I guess now that I read it, I mean, I don't see where that's covered here. So is it just take this sentence and put it in? So this one would be up for review in 26. Where does that naturally fit? Maybe, is it a bullet point?
What would you take out? They support cooperation with the schools, period.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah, Yeah.
established ways to.
We can decide which way we want to go.
Cooperation with schools.
So if you're a school, you could come and ask us to partner, a point taken.
Yeah, and we also address that with the school visits request form, right?
I mean, maybe this doesn't need to be here. Maybe it's just in 26 when we talk about that policy, we'll just say we don't need this policy.
Why not get two things done at once?
Or we can bring it to the board now and say, you know, we don't think that this is the policy committee is recommending that this is served its useful life.
We're talking about schools a little bit, but again, I think we're ahead of schedule here. I generally would like to be inviting to homeschools in addition, and private schools, in addition to these public schools, which are associated with our jurisdictional partners.
Yeah.
So anytime we're describing collaborating with schools, I would like to kind of list that out to make sure that we're being inclusive there. Again, I don't know if that goes here, or if we even need to say that, I don't know. I don't know, can anyone speak briefly to ways that homeschools do engage with the library? Is it more informal that they would just reserve rooms maybe, or they it at the scheduled time?
Yeah, they've asked for like, computer instruction on databases
Yeah.
or, they obviously use the meeting rooms, but there are times that they will request a formal.
I think they engage in ways that are very similar to
Yeah.
how public schools do, especially now with teacher cards. We've got homeschool families getting teacher cards. We've got cooperatives that will ask for tours for teacher packs, like subject packs on dinosaurs or whatnot. Staff will pull in a bunch of materials on.
Did we go, I think, I have a recollection of going to a school and sort of handing out, or that's not the right word, signing up students.
Like a back to school night.
Yeah, where we're here and everybody
Cabling,
come
yeah.
get your card, your
Mhm.
library card. And
Yeah.
so that wouldn't happen probably at a homeschool.
Unless they
Unless
had
they
an
requested
event.
something.
Yeah, they have to ask,
If there
yeah.
would be an event that would be like, oh, we're having a homeschool, a regional get together of
Yeah.
some sort or.
So generally, if we're tabling at a public school or a private school event, they've told you have to know about the event somehow. Or
Generally, we're invited.
Yeah, generally
they're
they
asking.
reach out to you.
Yeah.
So that's happening here, I would say. And you said there's a form for this or business?
There's a form under, basically to schedule a group visit, which includes school groups. Like, that's what we point them to.
So if we were keeping schools, that would be a type of thing I would want to put in there. Is when somebody finds schools, we're talking about, well, here's a way you can engage with us as a school.
It's right, it's number 3.
It's a policy. There is a form though, that didn't pop up as quickly as I thought it would.
So so there's not a school visit form, it's just a group visit.
Visit, which is what we direct everyone to.
Homeschool,
Yeah.
co-op or a school or
And then sometimes it's adult education, like the ESL groups for adults.
or it could be a book club or whoever.
And in the form, you can say, I want my group to come to the library, or I want the library to come to my group.
Yes, either way.
Schedule a group visit.
And then we also include the bookmobile and all this, so, right?
Sure. I haven't filled out the form myself. I've only seen the results of the
Right,
form.
I know.
So you could ask for some
Yeah.
services to happen.
All right, my lean right this second is we might keep schools, but just flesh it out with just a few more things to make sure everybody's included and tell us school folks, here's some things that we can offer, and then we would link to stuff.
Yeah, and we have an interest in improving those. Actually, one of the things that this branch has done over the last few years is come up with a specific MOU with the local school system about like, hey, we'll do this for you, you do this for us. That includes getting cards for all kids that parents want them to have cards and regular visits, both ways, or school groups will come here and we will go there, so.
Okay.
Oh, hold on.
No, please.
We have to be real careful because we're leaving out the hospital school.
Yeah.
So hospital school,
They're about
it, yeah.
Cannot
And
leave.
they have the hospital, and they have a principal and teachers and all of that. So I think just saying schools and maybe just say and homeschoolers, because that would be a different route. But like, again, if we start calling names, well, I work at the hospital and you didn't put my name down. I worry about people feeling left out, excluded.
Yeah, good march.
Yeah, because schools encompasses public schools, private schools.
Yeah.
Whatever, and then
School, it really, yeah.
And that there.
And because people choose to do the homeschooling, we want them to feel welcome too. And then that covers everybody.
Well, I guess the question is, does any of that need to go in here? Should we can just kick the can on the other policy until it comes up again?
I think it would only go in here if we were thinking to deprecate that schools policy. Right now, my thinking is that does have
It
some
could be
use.
fleshed out,
some-
it could be
some-
better than one sentence.
Like we could refer to the visits policy and.
Oh, yeah.
Or like, how do you actually interact with us?
And define
How do you get a
schools.
teacher pack? Like you could.
Right, yeah, you
Card.
for the services that are
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
available.
And I think that too, that's good too, who to contact, like if you live in Nelson, you want to talk probably directly to the Nelson branch manager, but if you're in the city in Albemarle County, maybe it's the children's services coordinator, so it could be a little bit more like here's.
Yeah, fleshed out, yeah.
Like helpful
And
information.
define schools.
Define schools,
Include
Kathy's point,
schools.
yeah, to make sure it's inclusive. All right, so we'll leave that alone.
So leave that alone. I wonder if there's a way to put some bullet points somewhere that just encapsulate this discussion we
So
just
3
had.
years from now.
So you-
Yeah. We should almost go ahead and make some notes on what we want to include in the school policy in
I
2
mean, do we
years.
have to wait 2 years?
No, we can do it, we can put it in. This committee can decide, and then the board would have to agree to vote on it, but I don't think they would have a problem.
But at least we don't want to forget what we just talked about and why.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like,
Sure, if we could certainly bullet it out right now and then come back with a
services
draft,
available,
come back with a draft next time.
teacher card, teacher packs,
Mm-hmm.
visits.
That would be potential
About student
additions.
cards.
Student cards.
You got teacher cards, you
We
got.
don't have a specific.
The teacher cards are different than just our regular cards.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
And I put a toot in for teachers. I have several in my life
Mhm.
and they love the fact that they can do that.
Yeah, but the students just have to use the same policies as everybody else.
No, I was talking about how they had listed.
Sorry, which one?
When you listed the teacher cards.
Oh, like how to get cards made for students,
Yeah.
because we do that as well, like if we're gonna have a school visit.
Like, right, okay.
Yeah. Keyboard is like.
Right, the teacher gets the applications, takes them, the kids take it home, they bring them back, and then they bring them to us and we make the cards.
But you still need to have it up there.
Yeah, and we can do that in advance for a classroom or for a homeschool group or whatnot, work with them to get the information and so that the kids show up and cards are made rather than trying to make 30 cards.
Some of this I would want to ask, is it belong in the policy? We're bumping up again about the school use, the policy is it, well, we're trying to, we want to, I think we all want to communicate all these things effectively to the potential patrons who would use them. But does that go into policy or is it just a web page?
Yeah, I think the policy could be generally like, hey, if you're interested in cooperating with the library as a representative of school or homeschool, then here's where to look. And then we could flesh out a procedure, which I'm sure there probably is no current procedure for that.
In the
Okay.
meantime, we could ask Sarah to make a page on the website that has all of that information for the next 2 years.
We don't.
Unless we're gonna do the policy sooner.
I think we should do the policy soon.
Yeah,
Well, expression.
Yeah.
all right, well, if there's I like the workflow of getting the bullet points down, which we've just kind of done, and then turn that into draft. So if there's a volunteer to turn some of those bullets into some language who wants to work with David on it, go ahead and reach out to him in the next 2 months. We got 2 months.
I'm
Till the
probably,
next meeting.
I'm not volunteering. I'm probably sticking my foot in. We don't have the Boys and Girls Club. Is that something else?
They would be like,
Okay.
they would, I
Just be a
think,
group.
yeah, we would
Yeah,
consider.
that's good.
Yeah.
What was that, Camille? What did you say? I volunteer.
Sure, that's what I said.
Well, maybe Megan could help too, like Megan and Heather.
Yeah, they got.
The coordinators for young adult and children's managers.
This seems like it would be pretty straightforward and it wouldn't be much, longer than a paragraph or maybe a couple sentences.
A couple of bullets, maybe, like we have here,
Right.
to the group visits and so forth.
So Mike, what do you want to do with community partnerships? I realize it is on the full board's agenda for a reading today, but they have not seen
Right.
a draft of it. So we could show it to them and have them read it and vote on it next month, or we could just send it to them next month.
Well, first question, is this
Yes.
group, ready to recommend this text to the full board as it stands? Okay. So sure, if we can certainly put it on the screen for reading. we have a half hour or 40 minutes, if there's any way to print out 10 copies, you can actually hand it around. I guess the question is, does it need to have been in the handouts for the public to have seen? 100% clear on that. I think part of the two
Yeah. it's to make
reading
sure
is to make sure we catch that.
there's no requirement to
Yeah.
that effect. There's no even requirement that there need to be two.
Yeah, I'm just talking about in terms of our practice, is a practice.
Our practice has been to try to make sure that
Yeah.
the full board and the members of the public have plenty of time to weigh in.
Okay, so yeah, we'll at least put it on the screen and read it, and if there's a way to get printouts between now and then, that's.
Okay.
Okay, so we do have a solid 20 minutes. So David is putting on the screen what is left for scheduled 10-year review in this calendar year.
Page 4 at the top.
And we're probably, where we're going is to probably maybe crack one of these open right now to get started. Probably the bottom 3 are not super complex. Maybe Bookmobile
We'll have some work.
has some stuff. Material selection is probably, to me, the single most important policy in the book. So we do want to, tackle that with a good focus. This year, I think we have 3 meetings remaining. I think this is almost 4. Did we decide it was 4?
June, August,
Yes.
October, December, so
Yes,
4.
4.
Yeah.
So we're talking about at least by October, and if not, probably August start on materials, I think.
Yeah, that's a good time to start.
So we have this meeting, yeah.
Kathy's terming off of the board.
Oh, I see. I see. Well, they're open, meetings are open.
Always welcome.
I love you all, but I don't love you that much. I look at it online.
August, you're still on the board.
Oh. September.
Okay. Well, we'll be in sort of a, we start with a review and get into bullet point mode and just sort of brainstorm issues there. And I think we talked a little bit, David, about education for this committee or the board of just the
Material selection.
material selection in
Yeah.
general. Walk us through what's there now and why, and what are the justifications in that.
Pull it up.
It's one of our more detailed policies.
Wow.
But I think, that we had discussed having a full CE for the board that would be about this and about procedure and about, whatever issues that have come up. This is not, it gets into a little bit of request for reconsideration, withdrawals and things like that, but this is the whole life cycle of how do we decide what to add and to some extent where it's gonna go. So yes, to Mike's point, this is what we do.
Yeah, so maybe let's pencil that in for, if you agree, well, I'm saying if we're talking about it in August, that's before the meeting, so it would be July, I guess,
For the CE.
for a CE. And that would just get everybody's thought, yeah, there you go. Their
So
cranial
what
blood.
you're saying is we'll flush through this and then present it to the board in August?
No, I'm saying, in July, perhaps, there would be a presentation or a continuing education, what's there now, and what are the reasons for it, and what are just in the professional library circles, what are the general principles behind this sort of thing? And then we'll have that sort of educated
Right.
approach when we start in August to see, okay, well, here are the exact wording, and here, or is something left out here, or do we need to tweak this and that?
So that leaves June for us to try to finish
Knock
up
something out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it'd be good to try to clear the slate a little bit.
Yeah.
because-
So let's pick one of these 3, and I think one of these 3 can also be probably interweaved with.
So my only concern about Bookmobile is that it is extremely procedural. So it's gonna take some work just to kind of suss out, well, so it's
policy?
the same questions we always have, like, what is the board trying to say to the world? What do we need to make sure the public knows? And then what should just be kind of the staff nuts and bolts on how to do this?
Yeah, there are a lot of details in there.
And this includes some things that are, where is it? That I think are broader ranging at times.
Well, do you want to pick this one and spend 20 minutes reading it together right now?
This is the harder of those three.
Yeah.
Here it is. The library does not issue institutional cards in order to accommodate outreach services to institutions. The library will establish outreach accounts, and then there's a very specific how that's done. So there is a question there, you know, of whether or not that's the direction that the board currently wants to go in. And I don't have right now the background to say, here's why that decision was made and here's what it actually means. I would need Brittany and Marianne.
I think too, you might want to CE on this before you start messing with this policy too. Which would be Marion or,
So we don't give a card to, you know, the bookmobile will go to stop at, you know, I'm just picking on Our Lady of Peace, you know, they'll stop there. There's an assisted living facility there. They will service the people. It is a public stop, so anybody can go and use the bookmobile while it's parked there, but they are specifically parked on somebody's private property there. There is no card that says this is the Our Lady of Peace card. So we check out materials to the institution, and if they get lost, the institution's responsible, and it goes to individuals. And that's the way that we've always done this, and I think there's a discussion to be had about whether or not we want to.
And you do it also at daycare centers?
Yeah, daycare centers that they do stop at.
Now.
So that means that the kids would have to have cards, usually it's the caregiver that gets a card and checks out a bunch of materials.
Okay. Because they're individual homes where people have, and then there are daycare school centers.
It depends, it depends on the stop. Basically. Anyway, I'm not sure, I'm not prepared to speak on it fully now, but.
I mean, I observed that's only tangentially related to the bookmobile itself.
Right.
It just happens to be that the bookmobile went to an institution.
In this policy where we kind of have that blanket statement, which is a big statement. So it has always kind of struck me as how we should talk about that. And does that need its own, I mean, that's more of a kind of circulation thing than a bookmobile thing.
Yeah, exactly. Okay,
I think emergency closings or closing a building because it's come up a lot.
Some frequency. Should we have one? Sure.
I mean, it came up in. We've had power outages, we've had heat issues, we've had.
Water.
Yeah.
This is something else I read. They are now concerned about places that large groups of people come to. You need to be more, you need to heighten your security. And possibly. That, who do you call and what do you do if a bomb threat is called in?
Yeah,
We have that in our emergency procedures specifically, like a script that you're supposed to use to talk to the person who's threatening the building.
Yeah.
we have a staff-based end to that, that's like, here's who to call, and here's how
Yeah.
to evacuate the building, and here's where the water cutoff is, and things like that.
So that wouldn't go in the emergency one,
I think this is more about when is the library gonna close to the public?
like in a snow day.
A snow day, that's mostly what this has been.
But it could be mechanical failures.
Or it could be the situation that you're talking about, in which we would immediately close if there was some sort of active threat, you know?
Or the lockdown situation that we
Which
have.
is something that we've never had before, but it's come up.
And that's not addressed here. It would be that if local emergency officials say,
Lockdown.
Yeah.
Shut the
that
library.
needs to
Even
be-
that gets tenuous though.
I know.
Because in Camille's case, the university let out a lockdown, you know, to their staff and buildings, but the city didn't. So who's, you know,
But we're 2 blocks
the
away
2 blocks from there.
and 3 blocks from where the crime happened, like.
Exactly. So it just, it
That's history.
needs some definition here.
That's been going on alongside, I guess the 2 superintendents need to meet and talk about that with me.
For schools.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the schools will close and JMRL will not close.
Yeah, like Venable's been on modified lockdown because there was somebody walking down the street with a gun or something while it was being investigated, but I don't think we even knew about it other than if somebody there happened to have a child with Venable.
And this has traditionally almost always been used for bad weather, but now there's all these other situations.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have a active shooter?
We have,
protocol?
we do staff training every year, and frequently this is addressed, but we don't have a policy for a public facing kind of policy. Sometimes what happened recently, and we wanted people, the fire drill, right? There was a fire alarm at the downtown library, and like the patrons don't want to go. It's like when the earthquake happened, we told them they need to leave the building and they don't want to go.
I think that this particular one was useful at the time because it's about if the county office buildings are closed and we close the libraries. It has been less useful post-COVID.
Plus, the county office buildings don't have the
in
hours.
weekends and the evening hours.
Which are the hardest times to cover for staff
Right.
if there is bad weather, then it gets more complicated.
So not all of this has to be board level decisions.
I mean, in some ways, this is all, everything you're talking about is covered. Well, it's covered because the
Right.
library director gets to decide. And
Right.
And it does say emergency conditions, so I guess.
Yeah.
All of those things are emergency conditions.
right.
So I know we had a group that was working on
Yeah,
updating
yeah.
procedures, and I think Brittany's still working on it
Okay.
for staff, but it's been a while since that has been discussed, but things like setting parameters for, okay, the power has gone out here in this building twice in the last month, once for high winds and once for something else. And one day we were here, Kristen and I happened to be here for a meeting, and it was like sunny and beautiful, and we continued with our meeting.
Because there was light coming in the window.
Natural light coming in the windows, but if that were to happen at the central library down in the reference area.
It'd be dark, yeah.
So some of it is kind of situational, depends on the time of year, if the power goes out and it's freezing cold out and it's not gonna be, so I think staff would be interested in some more definitions there, but that we can handle procedurally too, I think.
I don't need to be a killjoy or anything, but do you all have something where the staff has been trained with the defibrillator or with, what is it, the fentanyl?
Yes.
You all have been trained by
The
that.
central staff was at last year's staff
Okay.
training day.
Almost all the branches.
Virginia level from the rescue
Yeah,
squad
yeah,
came.
Yeah, I always like to be proactive,
Yeah.
because you never know, and especially your location.
We have AEDs
Well,
we have access to AEDs at every location. They're in the process of switching out brands at Gordon, so don't go to Gordon if you're.
there is
There is
one upstairs that works and is not expired and all the staff is trained to use it.
But when I come, I'll bring mine.
I always tell staff, I'm the most likely person they're gonna use them. Okay, so Mike, I think that this one, we could. I think it's pretty close to what we're gonna end up with.
Probably.
What the board wants to say.
Probably. I mean, I guess if I were wanted to make sure I was real systematic about it, I would ask you to generate a list of here's scenarios, and then we would decide if those need to be covered or does just a blanket the right approach for those. I mean, again, at some level, I would just try and think of who the stakeholders for this. At one level, we're trying to tell the public, here's what you can expect. But I think in some ways, the nature of an emergency is that something you don't anticipate. So there definitely has to be a cover all.
Because when you all closed that time, it came over that the library director said you were closing, and then it came across the screen. You can call and tell them to do that, but sometimes they'll just do it.
Well, I was just thinking along those lines that if one of our goals, and it usually is to communicate information to the public, then it should probably say, check JMRL.org.
How do we
Because
communicate?
and I still do all these things. I call, I put it on WINA, on all the TV stations, and put it on our social media.
Put it on
But
our
the best way to
phone,
do it is
our
from-
answering machine, on the front door.
That's fine, but everybody does not use the website.
Right, so we put it on the phone,
No.
It's on the phone,
That's
that's
we put it on the front
the
door.
best way to get the most up to date.
Yeah, it's the best way to reach a large percentage of the population.
And there are gonna be people, it's always gonna happen. Somebody's not gonna know that we're closed and they're gonna come to any given branch.
Yeah,
and they're
that
gonna know
always
when they get to
happens.
the door, Which is the worst case, you know, in terms of customer service, that's the worst, but.
And you probably post something on the door too, so that's
It
why.
depends, it depends. I mean, if
Snows
there was,
overnight, we're
if
not
it snows
going in.
overnight and if we're not coming in and can't get there.
We usually get there and put something on the door.
In the city, you can get there, but like,
But if
at
you-
some of the locations, they can't get out.
I was thinking about not leaving home in the snow to go put a sign up for one person, but I was thinking about if you closed in the middle of the day because the pipes burst or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
You didn't leave a sign
Mhm.
because, but, the website is beautiful and you should do it, but you also need to realize that there are communities.
We do. Yeah, we do. I always do. I'll show you the list. It's like WINA, the,
Well, I've heard you, I just, when you said the majority of, you know, you reach.
that's probably where most of the people get that up-to-date information.
So Kathy, I agree with your, where you're generally, the perspective you're raising here. I think the question with regard to this piece of paper is, do we list all of those things out in this policy, or do we just, I mean, we're already doing them, we have a procedure to do, you know, use those channels, it's just, do we write it down in the policy, here's all the channels that you can look, where you can look.
And also, you know, it does vary from branch to branch. Like
Right.
there are times when there will be bad weather in Louisa and not in Marine, so one will be open and one won't. So we don't really have one central telephone number, which is nice at some places where you can call it.
But I guess it's fair to say, if you put website and branch phone number,
Yeah.
probably fair to say that that would be pretty up to date pretty quickly. So that,
They do change the phone number, the messages at all the branches too. So if Scottsville closes, they'll call in. They can all do that remotely, call in and have it say closed for the day.
Yeah. so if we add that, that would be a really short list, but that might cover a majority of the remainder. You know, that's, so I think that might be good. I guess, as we start to wrap, you know, Krista, you said, and I think David, you've said, well, it's come up a lot with staff, this topic. So I would want to hear maybe from those staff members what is it in the policy? So there's some question you had that needed, you know, about whether the library closed at a certain time because of certain circumstance. Great. What would you like to see in the policy that would either give you a tool to deal with that? Or is this really a procedural conversations? That's, you know, again, if I'm focused on this, that's what I need to understand in order to give the best tool for everyone here.
Yeah, I could see both sides. I mean, this could get long with some of those details.
Right, if we don't have power for 3
Yeah,
hours, yeah.
if
for
it's
sure.
4 hours without water.
Water, there's, the issues of water and
I
power.
think that's what people want to know, but I don't think that.
I don't know if the public
Here,
That's
yeah,
more.
the staff
Yeah,
wants to know
I was
that.
thinking, does the public want to know that, or does that, they don't,
No,
they just
people,
want to know it's closed.
yeah,
Well, we didn't, like, in certain locations, we don't give the details on why, we just say it's a building issue.
Yeah, depending on what happened.
yeah.
Yeah, but in some cases, if it's like a pipe, and the reason I say this is because I've been to City Hall several times, you can't get in, but I didn't know that, you know. Then the other part is when, the elevator was broken,
Yes.
and I went somewhere with this pen on after a meeting, and a man started fussing about, well, what's wrong? So I explained it, and then he understood, but, you know, you kind of have to tell him why.
Okay, I think we can come up with some bullet points to discuss for this one. And the only other one that we didn't just talk about was displays of original art. I think it's pretty good.
What's the date on the bottom of this?
Here's-
I go back, I just want to.
Is this big enough? Can we also- A little late now, to be asking.
It sounds good. The Supreme Court, did Senate do something?
Or I record. I mean, this is art displays and, like, and for instance, Northside constantly has those art displays on the walls.
Yeah.
More so than probably any other location. I guess Crozet has a lot. You really don't have a space to do it. They've done it in
This
here
room,
before.
this room,
Yeah,
generally has, but it's usually school related.
yeah. It's really Northside is the one that's most heavily.
It has a display area.
It's nice,
I think it's good too.
It's nice to have the art there and have it change out.
especially if it's community.
So maybe I would propose that we would do emergency closings and displays of original art at our next meeting.
Okay. And then just for planning purposes, you were recommending a continuing education on bookmobile? Is that what I heard?
Sure.
Well, I'm just thinking, we're doing a continuing education on the material selection policy, but we're also looking at bookmobile. We probably need to educate people on what.
Yeah, I didn't mean to
Yeah.
hesitate there. I was thinking, would it be more useful to have Marion come to a policy committee meeting and just talk these issues through rather than to have, I mean, it is good to have her there and to talk about services and there's been a lot of changes.
Changes, yeah.
In the last 2 years. So it's time to have that anyway. But yeah, they're also gonna be short-staffed.
Right.
Short-staffed.
Every time.
Okay, well, I'm trying to think, we got June and then August. So let's try and knock these out in June. August would be at least starting on, material selection. So then bookmobile, I think, could just be later in the year,
Yeah, tail end of the year.
maybe when the staffing, is gonna be.
I'm confident that we can get a CE in between now and then, basically, it might not be right one after the other.
Maybe that's a September CE tax thing. Okay, so then the homework is and we might tackle schools if we have, next meeting as well. So the homework is, if there really is volunteer for schools, then we might have some draft language. And then for original art and emergency closings, I would lean a little bit on you, on the staff, David, via you.
Yeah.
To just come up with, here are the use cases where things need to be better defined for the public, or we need a tool to be able to point to when we get public questions. Or does it meet our needs as is? So, yeah, really, those are a little more operationally
Yeah, that sounds good.
angled. But if I can ask for that homework to be, presented at the beginning of when we start talking about those, then that'll give us a place to go from there. It sounds like there may not be a lot necessary at a policy level, but let's cover that base and confirm that
Okay.
as we get started. Okay, anything else for this meeting then? All right, thank you to everyone, and then we'll see the full board meeting in a few minutes. All right, so we will adjourn this meeting.